Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please go and leave a 5-star review. Won't you please? I want to tell you all about Cushy Dreams. These guys have really saved me over the past few months in terms of handling my anxiety and the stress of 2020. Cushy Dreams offers a full lineup of premium smokable CBD. They specialize in extraordinary CBD-rich hemp flower, aka bud, in cans. And also they'll make pre-roll CBD joints that you can smoke. It looks, smells, feels just like weed, just like regular marijuana, but it's not. And you get all of the benefits. Like it helps you sleep, it helps calm down your body and mind. It really helps me focus a little bit better. It just helps me chill, it helps me not just get into that anxiety loop that I think some of you might know what I'm talking about. It's cannabis. It ships directly to you. It's legal in all 50 states. You're not going to get high. Again, this is under 0.3% THC. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. Cushy dreams, cushy dream. I should sing a song. This is really quality stuff. It's 100% hand trimmed, never machine trimmed. They take the artisan approach. Every run is in a small batch. They're constantly doing purity and compliance testing. And best of all, it's grown here in the USA. They come in different indica sativa blends like energy, hustle, relax, dream, create. So go to cushydreams.com. That's KUSHY and get your high quality CBD bud. Use the promo code CMP and you'll get 20% off every order plus free shipping. You know what else I'm going to talk about? Getting your junk right, getting your junk looking good. It's November. It's time to get your junk out of hiding, break your junk out of lockdown. And you know who can help? Manscaped.com can help. They are the best in below the waist trimming for precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They're based here in the US, but they just launched in the UK. So it doesn't matter where you live. You can get in on this Manscaped goodness. If you're somebody who's nicked yourself and then hooked up, and you know what kind of pain that is, and Manscaped really cuts down on that. For example, they have this really great product called a lawnmower, and it works so well, especially with Frank, whose junk I look at almost on a weekly basis. And it made his dick look bigger. So I highly recommend it. These are really quality products. The holidays are coming. Invest in yourself. Invest in your junk. Do you know what I mean? Make it look good. And if you're listening and you're a girl and you know a guy, this is perfect to get for your guy. Christmas is just around the corner. Get your stocking stuffed. They have different products too. If you have a guy with a lot of nose hair and ear hair, then the weed whacker is perfect for that guy. The lawnmower lasts up to 90 minutes. So that's a legit long lasting battery. Comes with a great recharging station. It's waterproof, has a cutting edge ceramic blade, and will reduce any awkward grooming accidents. If you're a dude, give this a try. Invest in yourself. Make it look hospitable down there. Make it so we want to cuddle up to it. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code CMP, get your 20% off plus free shipping. I am so thrilled to have this guy on the podcast today. I have been such a huge fan of his dating back to the Loveline days. He was a huge inspiration for my show, The Wet Spot on Compound Media. He is a real doctor, a board certified internist. He specializes in addiction medicine. He's a TV host and podcaster. You can catch him on any of his weekly streaming shows: Ask Dr. Drew, Daily Dose of Dr. Drew, Dr. Drew After Dark. Behold, Dr. Drew. How are you?
Here we are. Thank
Here
you.
we
Thanks
are.
for all those kind words. Dating back was what jumped out at me. Dating all the way
Oh,
back
no.
to the old days.
Well, it's not even, I mean, you were doing Loveline until just 4 years ago. So
Something like that. Yeah, we did it for 35 years. It's insane. I
oh
can't
my,
believe we did that long.
yeah,
Crazy.
I believe it because you are regarded as a sort of beacon of truth and common sense. And a lot of people go to you for advice because of your background and your qualification, and because it's not just medicine. You're up on cultural, political trends. You're aware of social issues. You can speak well on sex and dating, relationships, and
Well, that's
health.
very kind.
So
I had this crazy clinical experience though that people are not, younger physicians today are not getting. And it's now things are even more siloed than ever in medicine. And so back when I was severely workaholic, I mean, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and struggling to get back at 10 p.m. I was sort of maintaining 4 careers simultaneously. I was doing outpatient general medicine. I was doing inpatient general medicine with intensive care management. I was doing medical management of psychiatric patients, and I was doing running an addiction medicine program.
wow.
And so as a result of sort of living in these 4 different worlds and just seeing just hundreds and hundreds of patients every week, I had this amazing experience. And it's a perspective and experience that no one gets anymore. And so I just feel like I have to unload everything I've got to help sort of, I don't know, use that experience in ways that is productive.
Yeah. And I think now is a time where all of your kind of training and experience kind of comes together to help all people, because I feel like this is everyone loves, everyone's saying this is a tough time. This is a hard time.
It is a hard time. It is.
And it is. And we have, the media is, I think, sometimes making, people that basically, if you're someone who's always watching the mainstream media, I believe there's a really strong mind-body connection. And I know, of course, there's legitimately people who are coming down with COVID, legitimately getting sick. And then I feel like there's a whole mess of people who are, generally speaking, literally worrying themselves sick. And then, I just feel like there's a lot of fight or flight going on. And I just feel like most experts are not talking about the huge repercussions of the lockdowns, of everyone losing their jobs.
You are 100% correct. And you're launching me into a big sort of category. The experts are aware, right? The people that are dealing with mental health conditions are aware, because you can't help but be aware. I mean, 18 to 15-year-olds all have anxiety disorders and depression, and their cognitive development, social development is being completely interrupted. Adults are being told they are powerless and helpless, and we're going to tell you from on high how to behave. That's how you create depression in the face of a profound economic shift. I mean, this is just in the city of San Francisco. The daily opioid deaths are 4 times the COVID deaths, 4 times. And no one, and when you say the experts aren't paying attention, no, it's not the experts. The public health officials seem to be paying no attention to this. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling as this is going on. And in the face of what they're doing, the reason I got on the radio in 1983 is that one Anthony Fauci was telling us young physicians to get out and educate, because we needed to change behavior because AIDS was going to kill so many people. And I was working with AIDS patients like crazy back then. And it was such a horrible, horrible chapter and hard to witness. And I wanted to do something about it. So this radio thing came along. I'm like, oh, that's what Fauci's telling me to do. I guess we'll do it. Well, in the 40 years hence, we learned how to change health behavior. It became a field of study. And the way you do it is you use humor, you use relatable sources, you use narratives. You don't preach at people. That's why me in a box, that does not change anybody's behavior. And so this preaching, this mandating, this authoritarianism we threw away everything we know about how to manage and create good health behaviors. It's uncanny to me. And they're doing it in such a way as to adversely impact mental health. I say every governing leader who is making these mandates needs to not take a salary while they're affecting hundreds of thousands of other lives.
Or how about not a raise? Yeah. How about not a raise?
See if that changes your decision making a little bit. And why don't you stay home and see how you feel after a few months? You're gonna be depressed like everybody else. So it's really just an awful situation we're in right now, and I'm just very, very, very concerned about it. Doesn't mitigate the fact that we have a serious pandemic on our hands. We do, and risk populations really are seriously at risk. There's good news embedded in the data on the current outbreak, right? health in California, particularly death rates continue to go down. They've gone down every day since the middle of July. Hospitalizations are barely up in spite of physicians. We're encouraging people into the hospital now because we have something to do. We used to say, stay home, stay home, stay home, and
Right.
don't expose other people. Now it's like, you're at risk, you're sick, get in here. We got Regeneron, we have remdesivir, we have convalescent plasma, we have Decadron, we have all these things we can do. And in spite of this encouraging people into the hospital, the hospitalization rate is not going up that much, except in areas that have never had any outbreak. Some states have really never previously had their outbreak, and now they're having it. And it's sad and it's awful, and we need to mitigate it, but we need to navigate these things, not engage in panic porn about it, which is what you're talking about. It's just panic porn.
Yeah. And it's like I feel like what you're saying, the public health officials almost have horse blinders, because it's like we are largely ignoring lonely separateness. Some governors, Cuomo, hate his guts, encouraging people to like not have a Thanksgiving, not have a Christmas, like stay away from your family. And I also feel like our mainstream media encourages us to cut off from those of our friends and family who have different political opinions than us. So it's like, I feel like this is just a recipe. Yeah, stay inside, don't get vitamin D.
Stay inside where 80% of the transmission occurs. Stay in, and you understand that this whole stay inside, stay in your home thing, that's never been recommended in the history of medicine. That is an idea that was invented in the early 2000s by a 14-year-old high school student. You aware of this?
What?
Yeah, the shelter in place. You will not find an infectious disease or public health textbook anywhere that talks about sheltering in place or staying in your home or even social distancing. You just won't find it. The idea of shelter in place came a 14-year-old girl in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who put together a science experiment, a science project for her school, where she suggested that influenza, a virus transmitted by children in very different ways than this virus, influenza could be mitigated by shutting down schools. Her father, who was a computer programmer at Los Alamos, thought, oh, that's an interesting idea. I bet I can make a computer model where you could advocate local lockdowns for a pandemic, which he did. And the Bush administration, he published a paper. His daughter, the 14-year-old, was the #2 author on that paper. This guy's name was Green. And the Bush administration, I believe it was 2006, adopted it as pandemic policy. No scientific evidence, just a model and an idea. No one had ever applied it before. No one had ever contemplated anything like this before. And all of a sudden, we're relying on it in the name of science.
Yeah. Wow. And I thought Greta Thunberg was the first sort of like obnoxious youngster to to publish something. It just seems like all of the common sense is flying out the window. Like, I'm not an expert like you. Like, I don't have I have a BA in communications, which qualifies you to answer phones. But to me, it's just like, I'm getting told every day by people on social media, like, even if you're outside, you have to wear a mask, and like just things that don't make sense. And I feel sad for people who are by themselves in their cars, by themselves outside, walking their dog and wearing 1-2 masks, beekeeper outfit, the whole thing.
But that's very funny. But something you said a few minutes ago about the lack of social contact is really problematic. I mean, we are social creatures, and I don't know about you, but I've been craving closeness and normal conversation and discourse with people I like and want to spend time with. It is necessary. It's how we build the mechanism of affect regulation. You talked about the hyperstimulation of the autonomic nervous system, right? That our adrenal system is all turned on all the time, which is true. But the reality is humans learn to regulate those systems through interaction with other brains.
Really?
Yes. Look at Peter Fonagy and Alan Shore and all those guys that have these interpersonal neurobiologies worked out. We are born into the world awash in feelings. We are not regulated. That capacity for regulation comes as a result of spending time staring into our mother's eyes. As we have feelings, she reflects back to us on her face a second order representation of those feelings and some soothing affects that give us a way to understand it and to regulate it. And that's the basic mechanism that we build the self and build the capacity to regulate our emotions. We rely to some extent on that our entire life with our peers. And we're being actually told to live like drug addicts, isolate. And of course, what do? We start drinking, we start doing drugs. That's what we do. isolate and stay where you are. You're powerless, you're helpless, which is also a recipe for depression.
It sounds like what you're explaining is that feeling that you get after you talk to a friend or hang out with a bunch of buddies all night, drinking or not, like that feeling of like, oh, I feel good, everything's going to be okay. That I think that's what's being pulled away.
You're absolutely correct, and you're actually bringing in another layer, which I would sort of put that under the category of love, like that's that feeling of community and togetherness and goodness and joy and things that we share, positive affects that we share together, that we amplify. We don't just regulate negative emotions, we amplify positive emotions too, and we are deprived of that. And it's so funny. You drop in things that I pick up on that are very funny. Drinking or not,
however you cope,
whether you're using or not, you still can feel good about your friends.
Yeah, I'm like, I know you're the addiction expert. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, you guys
okay.
gotta drink.
It's more just that I listen to you very carefully. So it's not getting past me when you say those things.
And that's the thing is they say, oh, you're the result of the 5 people you hang out most with. And right now we all have that 1 or 2 friends that we're really missing, that we know we could hang out with. And no matter what's going on, like we're going to leave them feeling better, and we can't do that. And it's like,
well, but here's the deal. You can.
You can. Of course you can.
Yeah. But we have to navigate this thing. I'm not saying don't wear. I'm a mask advocate. I think you should wear your mask. I'm not saying you should wear a mask when you're alone hiking in the mountains. I think you should wear a mask when you might be able to infect somebody else. How would you feel if you walked around pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic and didn't do something to mitigate that potential? You'd feel terrible.
Do you think that if you're a fully healthy person with zero, I've told people like this last 8 months, I felt like the healthiest I've ever been. Like usually by now I would have had a bad cold or flu or something, and I feel actually great. What are your feelings on, healthy people walking around with no symptoms? Do you feel like they need to be wearing masks too?
Well, it's an interesting question. I do, but I wouldn't be in a position. I wouldn't sit down and mandate it of people. I would try to persuade people. I would give them good health messaging as opposed to making them feel powerless. I would say the thing that I missed about this infection at the beginning was it's how profoundly infectious it is. Its infectivity, even though it may not affect you, it will go through you, and and when this thing is amplifying, it has a really exponential growth pattern to it, and then it eventually gets to the people that are really in trouble. So I would say, think about yes, if you want to take some risk, I understand. You're right, probably not going to adversely affect you, but if you get infected, and especially if you have no symptoms, you're going to walk around spreading it, and I don't think you want to be that person, because this thing really amplifies when it amplifies.
So it's like HPV, where you could have it. Like they say, guys don't really carry certain like HPV symptoms, but then they'll pass it to a girl and they'll be like, ah.
Correct. I like how your brain works. It's
always thinking about HPV.
Going right to the genitalia. But yes, HPV is a great example of that, because men don't have any symptoms unless they have the warts, which they may not get. And there's no test for it in the man. And so we could be that's why we say wear a condom every time, because you don't know. And do you want to be that guy? You want to be the guy spreading this stuff?
Because I've been, I'll wear it when I go into a store. I'll wear it, but I didn't wear it when I was outside at a rally in DC this past week. I didn't wear a condom. How some guys will be like, yeah, just in case, I'll put it on in the beginning of the night. Let it rub against my jeans for 4 hours. Oh,
I know, man. Trust me, there has been that guy more than once. So anyway, yes.
Yeah, I've been generally not wearing it when I've been outside because I feel good. I also over the course of 8 months, nobody I've been around or close to has gotten it, which tells me okay, I don't think I've given it to anyone.
Right. Where are you? Where are you looking?
New York. I'm out in Westchester, but I'll maybe go into the city once a week.
You take a train in, or what do you do?
Yeah, I'll take the Metro North in and then the subway and to do my compound media show, and then I'll just come right back.
Do you feel any concern about that? Because I go to New York regularly, and I'm still a little weird about being in the trains.
I don't feel weird at all. Like I'm just like,
because I wanted to take a train. I've got to go up in 2 weeks. I've got to go up from essentially Washington D.C. to New York, and I said I'll take a train. And my wife's like, "Oh, trains are the worst." I thought I don't know.
They've been kind of
Yeah,
cleaning them for months now,
good,
and there's not a lot of people taking them, so it's not
good.
like normal train activity
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you've
yeah.
got, nobody. What's nice about the New York City subway now is like there's nobody jerking off on you. Those guys
That's
are
nice. That's nice.
home. So
That's nice. Yeah. So that's one of the privileges I don't have about riding on the subway. For me.
it seems, as I'm looking, I always try to be like as neutral as I can, like see both sides of like the
Me too.
political, what's
Me
it's,
too. I
because,
absolutely do. I absolutely am the same
and
way. I realized today, I was thinking about it. I see the craziness on both sides. I see the points on both sides. But I thought to myself, no, you know where I tilt towards? I tilt towards freedom.
yeah.
That's is my bias. I definitely bias towards freedoms. And if that says something about my political self, okay. But I see the points on both sides that they're making.
And I feel like, okay, we have people on the far left and the far right kind of getting triggered by different stuff. I feel like far
Yeah.
left, I'm seeing a lot of anger. I'm seeing a lot of, we were seeing riots and looting, but I'm seeing way more fear of COVID on the left. And then on the right, I'm
Yep.
seeing a lot of fear of, America's going to turn socialist, America's going to
Yeah.
turn communist, a
Yeah.
real fear of losing their rights, which seems sort of more permanent and harder to come back from than just a
The
virus.
COVID outbreak. Yeah.
So, on both sides, like what's your from a mental health professional point of
Well,
view?
it's I still do a podcast with Adam Carolla 3 days a week, and he and I talk a lot, and it's hard to make sense of. I don't think we're going to be making real sense of it till we're looking at it through the rearview mirror. But one thing he and I always say to ourselves is all roads lead to narcissism. I've been writing and talking about narcissism for 20 years. I saw it coming. I was, working in a psychiatric hospital when I saw you would fill out an admission sheet on every patient. And there's always back then there was always an Axis 2, which is the personality disorder sort of entry. And when I arrived at that facility in the early 80s, you would see all kinds of different personality disorders. By the late 80s, early 90s, it was all the cluster B disorders. Every patient had a cluster B, which is narcissism, borderline, sociopath. Everybody. And it's been the same ever since. So and Christopher Lasch wrote a book in the 70s, a sociologist, called The Culture of Narcissism, that sort of predicted this. But even he didn't see how bad it would get. I wrote a book called The Mirror Effect, where I amplified Christopher Lasch's theory, but I didn't see social media. So I didn't see how bad it would get. But it really, ultimately, it's about narcissism. And, I kept saying, I wanted to write a chapter in my book on narcissism about pre-revolutionary France, because I could not find a period of history where there was as much childhood trauma except pre-revolutionary France. And I kept saying, that all this trauma is going to create more and more and more narcissism. And when people have narcissistic rage, the way they prevent attacking each other is they find some other object outside themselves to attack. So they gather together to attack one. And that's exactly now what happened. That's the cancel culture now. That's the guillotines during revolutionary France. And today it's the cancel culture, where the group feels gratified in exercising their aggression and their violence by canceling that person. It's the big liability of narcissism is envy and empathic failure. So if you envy somebody, you act it out with the mob, you cancel them, and it's empathic failure. You don't even consider that a person. It's a cartoon character, and boom, off it goes.
Do you, is what you're saying is like, you feel like there's this generation, or I don't know, I'm a millennial. I don't feel like I identify with being a millennial, but were you
How old
saying
are
that,
you, if you don't mind me? How old are you now?
just turned 37, but I don't look
Okay.
it.
No, you don't. I know.
Yeah, I did recently come to a point where I was like, okay, I have to decide right now, am I a person who lies about their age or am I not? Because like I really have to pick one side.
You should tell the age, because it's impressive.
Okay, cool.
Don't look 37. It's good. Works for
Are
me.
you saying that there is perhaps more childhood trauma going on, say, with like millennials or Gen Z that's producing this?
No, it was the 70s, 80s, and 90s. There was a
Okay.
pandemic of childhood trauma, and we're still dealing with the aftermath of that. And remember, those people then grew up and became parents and then traumatized their kids, right? And so how often, look at the teen mom women I work with now, right? They're always saying now, I need to break this intergenerational trauma. I need to break the intergenerational trauma, which is true. That's the task now, is to stop this generational transmission of trauma. And it's rough. It's very difficult to do. We could do it, but people have to be very motivated. They have to have access to treatment and trauma-informed care, and people get better, but not everyone's getting it. Instead, they're just acting out on social media.
The only example I can think of is like for sure child abuse, because people who were abused themselves tend to abuse like their younger relatives or their own kids. But
Mm-hmm.
are you speaking more in a general sense? Like I think about my dad, who's a baby boomer, German immigrant. Like his dad ended up in a Mooney cult, like giving a lot of the family's money, I guess, away to this cult.
This explains
And
so much, Chrissie. Explains
oh
so much.
God, yeah. Man. And then like his dad was like my dad's dad was a German soldier who felt guilty about the Holocaust. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot to unpack. What's going
Yeah.
on there?
Yeah, all
And
that gets transmitted. All those feelings gets transmitted to the children, right? And it takes
hmm.
about 3 generations to wash these things out.
Why? Because a parent will pass on to their kids their own fears, their own
Yes, even
narcissism.
without well, they're certainly their own fears and traumas get transmitted, right? Even if they're not explicit, the child feels it. So here's one of my traumas, which I had several, which is my dad was severely traumatized during the Depression. His family essentially lost everything, ended up on the street, no food, blah blah blah. And so I remember from the age of 2, my dad just raining that feeling down on me about tomorrow is a catastrophe. The catastrophe is tomorrow. And then it kind of got explicit during my early childhood, like 2 to 4, just like, oh, you need shoes, you're growing, you say that you're outgrowing your shoes. Okay, you get shoes, that's all right. You can get a pair of shoes, but tonight when you come home, or if you have to, when I come home, I go straight to the poorhouse. And you can see me at the poorhouse. You can wave through the window, and I'll be standing in the window waving back at you. But if you can buy the shoes, get those shoes. You need them. But I'll be at the poorhouse tonight. And I had
Oh
this
my
place in my head. I was
God.
2 years old, and so that was just rained down on me. And guess what? I have all these financial fears and concerns,
Mm-hmm.
catastrophizing, and so there it is. So
Whoa,
that
mine,
was my
it's so
version.
weird. Like I always like this. I mean, and I see a therapist, we Zoom every week and like, I never want to like call myself a victim, but for sure, like there's shit that happened to me in my childhood. Like I've mentioned on other podcasts, like my dad got real angry, threw a chair at me once, like he missed, hooray, everyone's fine. But
But
like
but
you
but
remember
but
that.
but you say it with a smile, and those of us that work with things, they have to remind you that that's you glossing over something that is profoundly traumatic. Let's not kid ourselves.
Well, yeah,
That is the person who is responsible for loving you, your well-being and safety, trying to destroy you. So your object of attachment is at once the source of the trauma. That is a huge rupture in the child's brain. Got it?
so here's the person I'm supposed to trust and feel cool with. And now it's like when they get, and ever since that, I was like, oh, when they get angry, stay away. In fact, don't do
Wishes
anything to
harm,
make,
wishes
yeah.
me harm. Underneath, how can I trust the love when he wishes me also harm? And it's a weird thing. Now, what that would set you up for, because then you get sort of a traumatic bonding. It actually weirdly brings you towards the person who's traumatizing you. And now that sets you up to be interested in men who will do the same thing.
Oh God, we're getting into it. Yeah, because it was almost like, oh, let me learn my dad. Let me learn the ways in which he gets what triggers him, his
But
anger.
hold on,
Everyone's
that's
tiptoeing.
your brain trying to make sense of things,
Hmm.
right? Your brain, it can't make, there's nothing sensible about this. Your brain's going, I know I can fix this. I can blah, 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 blah. No, the reality is he is at once the source of destruction and attachment, and you have to reconcile those
Ooh.
feelings. It's very hard. Instead, what you do is get attracted to people who do the same thing, and you repeat the trauma.
And I tell myself like, well, he wasn't throwing it at me because he threw it here. Like it
Right.
like,
This is again your brain's, your frontal lobe. Your frontal lobe is always trying to make it okay, make sense of it, do something with it, but that's not how you do it.
For sure. Yeah, I was for sure growing up scared of him, like hiding under the bed. And then one time I pushed my sister down the stairs and maybe I beat up on her a little bit because I felt
That's a lot.
helpless.
That's a little bit, and then you got to deal with that and the guilt and shame around that. And so that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. And it's funny, I keep pushing you to talk about more in the moment, more here and now relationships, and you were actively resisting
Oh, well,
that.
I did have a boyfriend that like, yeah, there were so many red flags, but yet it took him breaking up with me for it to be over.
Right.
And I think that's
Because again, you're attached to the trauma. You got to fix the trauma. You got to fix this. And it has all kinds of implications on how you feel about yourself and things too.
oh yeah, we're talking about low self-esteem. That's cool. Yeah.
Well, I actually think low self-esteem is cool. But I'm not specifically talking about low self-esteem. I'm talking about shame. And shame is a little different. But low self-esteem is something esteem is set up between the age of 0 and 5. And you either go, and it's a digital thing, you get low or high. You go one way or the other. And very, very high self-esteem, I consider a liability. I mean, we all know those people who's, particularly the males whose moms felt they could do no wrong. Those entitled assholes are not fun to be
Yeah.
around. By the same token, people who have low self-esteem, it can go very bad, and you can have shame and depression, all that stuff with it. But if it's just sort of a moderately low self-esteem, it makes you feel responsible for everything and take accountability for things and to always try to do better. That's not so bad, right? So I have very low self-esteem, but I sort of feel like it's an asset these days because it doesn't bother me. I don't feel anything with it anymore, and it makes me always want to be a better person.
For sure. Like mine makes me want to work harder because I know I don't know anything, everything,
There you go.
Yeah, it's weird because then like I didn't know. I'm okay getting into me. Like when I was little, like I was really good at diving, like started at 11 and then did like, all throughout high school, Division 1, like was really good at it. And I was like really good at art too, but my parents never really like hung my shit up. And I just thought, okay, well, I guess it's just not good enough. Like I was genuinely good at things. And I formed more of an attachment to like achievements rather than just being loved for the sake of deserving love or,
Right. And I had a similar setup, but of course you have parents that never single you out and tell you good job. So it's never good enough.
It's like, I'm sure they did, but I guess I didn't really get the message. Like I was scared of my dad. And then I felt like with my mom, I had to like pump her up, make her feel better after they would fight about money or something. So I'd be like, I gotta make her laugh or something.
You're a setup for being attracted to alcoholics.
Oh God.
Did you do that too?
Yeah, I dated one for like 3.5 years.
Yeah,
and
you gotta be careful.
he had my dad definitely drank. Like I never saw him hammered per se, but like
hang on, there goes your brain again, minimizing, trying to explain. It's just you're a setup for that, and you need to keep going to therapy. keep talking about it.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, he would say
it gets better. It gets a lot better in treatment. I mean, this is how we work. This is how humans work,
Yeah. I mean, I would see like 5 or 6 empty green, either Heineken or Beck's bottles. Who wasn't like stumbling around, but like for sure would have like impulse control, like yelling and the chair thing.
It's the alcoholic. It's a straight up alcoholic. Let's not minimize it. Have you seen The Queen's Gambit yet?
No.
Oh, you'll like it. It's about an alcoholic.
But yet the guy I dated had quit alcohol. And then so I think my therapist was like, well, it's still, you get to be like what is called a dry drunk, where the person who's
it's not just a dry drunk. It's alcoholics are a certain kind of person. They are a certain makeup about them genetically. You're going to be attracted to that. That's just the way it is.
This is why I love happy hour.
Right. Now you can go with that and hope you're with someone who can kind of control their using and that kind of thing. Or you can be with a recovering person, right? Sometimes people who really are in full recovery, been recovering for 10 years, that kind of thing. Or you can just not go for the lightning bolts. We always tell people when you have trauma like this, it's healthier to go for butterflies than lightning bolts. When the attraction is lightning bolts, it's going to be an alcoholic, rageaholic, whatever. If you feel more butterfly-ish, you're going to have a more nourishing relationship, but not so exciting.
Yes, I think my boyfriend now is very grounded, very chill.
More butterflies. Butterflies. Good.
Yeah, he's like a tree. It's like,
Yeah.
He's gonna listen to this.
All that therapy's working. See?
Oh, for sure. Because I remember when I met him, I was still with the ex, and I'm like, wow, this guy seems like really just nice. And wouldn't yell at me.
I hate him. I certainly can't be with a guy like that.
Yeah. And I was like, what's going on? We're not fighting till 2 a.m. Like you must not love me, But no, we were just chill.
There it is.
I love this all roads lead to narcissism because to me that sounds like, well, whether you're on the left or the right politically, or even in the middle,
Yeah,
it sounds like what you're saying is whatever you think the biggest issues are, it's like nothing else
it's
exists, and
still you.
it
It's still
keeps
you.
you from what, seeing other people's reality.
Yeah, well, it's a little more complicated than that, but empathic failure, envy, right? Those are the two big liabilities. You don't see other people as having agency or feelings. You're just going to attack them and not feel anything. And especially if you have envy towards that person, you're prone to acting out on them, and you're prone to forming groups of people who are equally enraged to get at that person, because it's prevents you from tearing each other apart. You focus on that one person that you're going to put on the guillotine. And we did it in revolutionary France, and we're doing it now. It's the
Hmm.
exact same thing. And if history teaches you anything, now this is separate from narcissism, this is now history, is that the people that put people on the guillotines eventually go on the guillotines themselves. It just doesn't stop, it just keeps rolling. And we need to stop this thing. We need to really stop it. It's so unhealthy right now. It's just, ugh,
How do we even
cesspool.
begin to stop it?
Well, I guess call it out. I mean, for what it is. I feel like it's reducing a little bit. Somehow the Trump presidency really inflamed everything
Hmm.
on both sides, and I'm guessing it's going to settle a little bit just by itself. But we gotta people need to be willing to look at what it is. A friend of mine, I was going to tell you, is an alcoholic, and he is recovering, and he was on one of the streaming shows I do, and he was complaining that he thought when Biden won the election, he would be relieved of all his anxiety and feel great and elated. And he said he felt the same. And he said, the way he said it was, because it's still me. It's still me and
Yes.
all my, yeah, it's still
Hmm.
me and all my narcissism and desire to control and to shit on other people. And that it's me. It's always been me. And I think that's an important lesson for people to learn. It isn't Trump. It's Trump triggering you, something about you.
Yeah, I think too. I've noticed just with people, and people have tried to like cancel me, right? Like I made jokes about like Chrissy Teigen or whoever, and I think there's the masses that kind of come to cancel you, but for me, the
Yep,
individual people that have been canceling, it's interesting that you say that because I have noticed deep down, perhaps like a jealousy element, and you're
of
like,
course.
well, you're someone that maybe almost is like could be a confused fan. I'll say a lot. I feel like haters are like just confused fans, like they want to like
That's
you, they just
interesting.
can't get there.
If you can see it that way, it's a pretty healthy way to look at it. It's dangerous. They're dangerous. But jealousy, the way I understand these things, jealousy is a little different. Jealousy is you're doing something or have something I don't have. It makes me feel jealous. I can be happy for you that you're having such good fortune, and then I can want to work harder to try to get what you got or even surpass you. That's jealous. Envy is you got something I don't have. Fuck you. I got to destroy you and knock you down to size.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy thing. And if you look at all the religious literature, it's filled with concern about envy and sort of constant preaching about avoiding envy and what a sin envy is. And we're indulged in it now. We love it.
Yeah. I think what needs to come underneath that is the belief, which I have, that there is no lack of opportunity. That like, if in my case, like if a comedian gets a late night spot or gets a special, well, shoot, like she's a girl and now that somehow took it away from me, which is not a thing, like I think the more in touch with your purpose and an alignment, and I'm going to sound like so new agey, but like the
Well, how do you
getting,
how do you how do you stay there? That sounds very good. How do you
how do you
stay
stay
in that,
there?
or how did you get there? What it seems like you're prone to kind of think that way. How did you get
Reading
that
a
way?
ton, I think reading a ton of like quote self-help books, like everything from like The Secret to like Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Eckhart, yeah.
And God, just
Did
I
any
mean,
did any one in particular really affect you?
um, I read a bunch of Gabrielle Bernstein's books a couple years back. One of them I think is called The Universe Has Your Back. I think all of it had just a cumulative effect. And then what's her name? Regina Thomas something or other. She has a book called Pussy, which is like it's really cool. I read it. I was like all about it a few years ago. It's all about like making time and space for your own pleasure, whether it's like physical or just like taking a bath, or like, it sounds so simple to say it out loud, but how like you just have to take care of yourself the way you do other people.
That
But
sounds like it's written for women.
yes, for sure. Oh,
Well,
she would have a
well,
big, like at the Javits Center, like a big old, everybody would go in and be like, yes, she was, yeah.
but it's true. But she's right, right? I mean, women. People argue that it's society doing this. I'm telling you, it's been throughout the species history. Women gravitate towards taking care of everybody else before they take care of themselves. It's like a posture.
Oh, for sure.
And
My mom
and
would do
also,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and also they take responsibility for everything. They do inventories in their head before they think, oh, maybe I just am having a medication side effect. They're busy
Yeah.
taking responsibility for that. Women just do this across cultures. They do it everywhere. And she's right. You have to actively take care of yourself. And
Yeah.
it breaks my heart when women do that to themselves. And then now we pretend that it's society doing it to them, so it doesn't give them the chance to own it and change it. It just puts it all out there, which is again part of narcissism. Everything's outside of myself.
Yeah.
You gotta own these things so you can change them.
And
You don't have to live with them.
I don't have kids yet. Who knows? I got probably to figure it out soon before everything goes bad down there. But I can see how like women, as soon as they have kids, it's like that last little smidgen of time that they would have had for themselves, to like go work
Oh,
out or get
forget
a
it.
massage,
Forget it. Forget
gone,
it.
because it's
Forget
like you
it.
got to keep all these little critters alive, and
Yeah.
everybody's mood and well-being is your fault, or a reflection on
Well,
you.
you feel that way. You feel that way. It's not, but you
So
feel that way. And
yeah.
that's important to acknowledge that it's a feeling, it's not reality.
And I've been, I guess, yeah, to like answer the question of like, where did I get that from? I think it's just through all the reading, and just like getting back to my core, like deep down, like just knowing that what's meant for me is going to come. And if other people get opportunities, like that's because those are meant for them. And like, I just got to lean into whatever, my comedic voice message, my fans. I think starting
What are you doing now? What kind of stuff are you looking forward to? What are you doing?
this podcast I really cranked up in May. I was like, I got to snap out of this slump and do something. So I started doing this
Yeah.
podcast 4 times a week, which is great. I get to talk to people like you, and then political people and porn stars and comedians. And it's like
Who's been interesting? Who's been an interesting
oh
interview?
gosh. On the porn side, like definitely Nicole Aniston was great to talk to. Brandy Love is actually like super cool, like kind of more conservative, but big patriot. And like the best is when I'll like, because a lot of my fans are like lovers of, free speech and comedy, and then like also dudes like love porn. So when that all comes together in a great conversation, it's like everybody wins, and we
Free
can
speech,
picture everyone
free speech
naked.
advocate and loving porn. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
I really love talking to Mike Cernovich. God,
Oh, that was interesting.
Brandon Strock from the Walk Away
Yeah.
movement was pretty
Uh,
cool. And
Interesting.
then
So good. So you're getting to do
yeah,
all that,
a
and
good
who knew,
mix.
right?
A
I
good
mean, it's
mix.
out of this pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
that's
And then I'm
exciting.
still doing the wet spot on Compound Media once a week. But that, it's good. That's like the fun, light and fluffy, like I would have, before the lockdown. Like I had a dominatrix in, she would bring in
Yeah,
like one of her slaves, we'd wrap him in saran wrap, and she'd be like, go ahead, step on his balls. And I'm like, I can't,
yeah.
they're balls. Like just fun sort of Howard
Oh, it's so
Sterny
funny.
type remote segments, which you could
Yeah.
totally come and we won't step on your balls, but if you
No, you
come
won't.
be a regular guest whenever you want. I had a
And
point.
you do that one in town,
Yes, yeah, that one I'll do at the Compound Media Studio
which
once
is
a
where?
week. That it's near like the Herald Square area,
Is it across from an Irish pub?
near
Is
Penn
that
Station.
studio?
Yes, yeah.
Right? Well, that could be
Mhm.
anywhere though. I mean, they could be in
Right,
Manhattan.
right.
But
That's so many places. So that's
yeah,
been like really, really great. And I think just thinking like more ways, because that's what all creative people, that's like our duty, right? Is like figuring out like how to keep everything open so that the inspiration comes, and then figuring out
mm,
where to point it and constantly pivoting, like if the creativity is the ocean, like figuring out like, all right, what streams are working, and if this gets plugged up, okay, like stand up, that's plugged up right now for the most part, so like you got to point that somewhere, or else you're going to get clogged up and not
it's
be your
really interesting.
best
That is,
self.
I because I'm so cognitively, academically trained, but I do something like that. I feel like in my life, particularly, I just sort of, particularly lately, as I sort of dialed down some of the clinical stuff, I was more open to those things.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I never thought about that.
It's been really good. It's been really fun. So I think the more that I've created for myself, the more it has, really brought it home. Like, yeah, there's no lack of opportunity. Like you just, there's no lack of making money. You just have to keep thinking and keep,
Are you happy right now?
yes. I got to figure out the kid thing pretty soon because I have this fear that like time is running out.
Why not? This is the third time that's come up. Why
Oh
not?
no.
Why not harvest eggs?
Oh, isn't it like 15 grand to like put them on
It can
ice?
be a little. It can be a little costly, but that's a way to control your reproductive future.
But
You know.
aren't they already kind of going bad?
Yes, you would have been better off at 28 just freezing them, but it's sometimes works quite well at your age.
That's when I was with the alcoholic. So
That
it
would
was,
have been a bad idea.
I should have put him on ice then. Oh, I knew he was like not the one when I was like, I think I'm late. And he was like, breaks. And I was like, oh,
Oh no! Oh
well, there
jeez!
we go. Yeah.
He's like, I'm out of here. Yeah.
You know,
Find out what a guy's made of.
I learned my lesson about dating comedians, but
Uh-oh, he's a comedian. That's bad.
yeah, it
A
was a
comedian,
couple.
alcoholic. Oh
Oh
boy.
yeah. I was like, let me just tick off every questionable box I could find. So, but yeah,
Well,
this
that's
is good.
good. You're happy and you're creative and you're fulfilled. And even in the face of this pandemic, you found a way to express yourself and do something really productive. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I really want, it's like I feel called to like I've always felt called to like bring joy, make people happy. Like there's
Yeah,
nothing better than uniting a room of people, laughing at the same thing.
sure.
And there's
Yeah.
always like a dance between like what sounds like an unselfish thing. Oh, I want to make other people laugh. But of course, there's ego involved. Of course, every
Yeah.
stand up comic has an ego. So it's like a dance between the two. But I think very recently, like in the lockdown, I felt like, I feel like it's really important to do whatever I can to keep people from not being like crippled with fear.
Well, good because the leaders have created an environment where we feel helpless and powerless, and that's how you induce depression. And you any story in the press, it's all panic porn, so that's inducing anxiety. It
Yeah.
really should be the opposite.
Do you think there's people who part of them weirdly likes to freak out, like likes to be
That's
afraid?
it's again back to me and Adam. We think about this like what do they find so appealing about this? What do they find so appealing about being in a panic about it when you can get more reasonable approaches to navigate it. You don't have to be in a panic. And the people like you said, Cuomo, who want to tell you how to live your life, what do they get from this?
He's power
What are they
hungry. He's like,
I,
woof.
that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
They're getting off on this in some way, both being under the thumb of someone and being in a panic and being compliant, or also being in control of everybody. It should be the opposite. Again, you should
Mm.
be persuading people to express their freedom by making good choices. And, we didn't in the AIDS epidemic. We didn't say, "Hey, stop having sex. You're a bad person if you have sex." This is the same thing. We didn't do anything like that. We said, understand your risk, wear a condom, get tested. We didn't say you're bad if you ever have sex with anybody.
Yeah.
Think about that. And that was a deadly disease. That was deadly. Now we
Yeah.
have a flu, which is deadly for some people. And now we're saying you're killing people if you don't wear a mask. You're killing people if you want to eat at a restaurant. You're killing
It's
people if you
crazy.
bring 3 families to your Thanksgiving. What happened to us?
You know what it is? It's like in the beginning of the lockdown, people go, why did we agree to this? Why did we agree in the first place? It was going to be 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, because
Yeah.
everybody is chronically overworked, not even taking their sick days. Like secretly, I know that I was like, yeah, I kind of would love 2 weeks off to just like not. And I think there's something seductive about that. Like if you're entrenched totally in like the chaos you can't control, well, guess
Yeah.
what? Because like, let's say this was all gone. You would still be anxious about, oh, my bills. I got to get a
Yeah.
raise. I got to get
Yeah.
married or
Well,
whatever it is.
and then the natural thing is, and then Big Daddy is going to take care of me, pay my
Mhm.
salary. Somebody's going to pay my salary. This is great.
Oh, yeah. But that's all the stress you can control, right? By like making decisions and bettering your life. But if you stay here in the stress you can control, it's almost like, is there maybe a part of your psyche that's like, oh, the pressure's off because this crazy
Yeah.
shit has nothing to do
Yeah.
with my own decisions
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah. There's something to that. There's something to it. I imagine in, urban environments and stuff, that's more prevalent even.
Hmm.
So how did you get involved in the wet spot? How did that happen to you?
For about a year, I would go on to this other show on Compound Media called In Hot Water, and I would just do like big characters. Like I went on and did a Greta Thunberg impression because I just was finding I was like, I'm really inspired by like unstable women in the news, and there'd be like a lady who got trapped and died in a clothing donation bin. And I was like, oh, that's terrible that this woman died, but like, what if she lived? And then I was like, the character was like her, but like how to make it in a clothing donation bin, like how to like tips and tricks, like. And then what's awesome about Compound Media is like the guy in the booth, like put a Goodwill box around me, like a Goodwill graphic. And it was just my head. And I was like,
Oh my
are you a
God.
size large? Like just playing and having so much fun with that. So I think I realized I'm like, oh, like Compound Media, despite a lot of shit I got from comics and friends being like, oh, Compound Media is like alt right, you can't get with them. They're going to be bad for your image. And then I was like, well, whatever, the left, like the woke Brooklyn comics aren't giving me love.
Won't
And
have you. Yeah, this is the part that people
yeah.
don't understand. It's that if you're a moderate, it's not like you choose which direction. You get invited. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you are disinvited. Other places do not invite you if you're not signed on to their path. I have found, like, for a while there, I was trying to do work on the homelessness situation, and CNN would not have me on because of
What?
ancient history. And
Mm-hmm.
but Fox News said, "Come on, talk about this." I went, "All right, I'll come on there." I have no great affection for Fox News, but they let me talk. That was it. The other place disinvited me. One place did invite me. All right, that's it.
That was exactly. And then did you get backlash for going on
Oh yeah, tons
Fox?
of it, tons of it, tons and tons and tons. That's why I kind of stopped. I'm like, I don't want to put up with that. It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
because it's one thing if I was a super supporter of those points of views. I'm not. I'm way more moderate than that.
You just trying
So
to get your message out there. You're just trying to
I'm
like
just
help people.
trying to find a platform, and then people think you get paid. Like you're a shill for Fox News. You do not get paid to go on news.
Yeah.
You do not get paid to be a guest on a news show. You get paid if you're a regular contributor or you're a host. Everyone else not paid.
That's good.
So
What about coffee? Did
you
they
get
give you?
coffee and then Danish.
Okay. Yeah. So I got like ton of shit still do for being involved in Compound, like lost friends over it. Even like I go to the rally in DC to cover it. People think, oh, like I didn't know you were a huge trumpet. And I was like, can't I just go cover a thing? Can I just be somewhere?
So weird. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Well,
So
you're either in or you're out now. That's narcissistic thinking, right? Part
team.
narcissism is all one way, all the other. That's narcissism. The
Hmm.
reality of human life is much more gray, much more nuanced. They refuse on
Yet
both sides.
those the people like preaching acceptance and peace and love and hugs. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not really
Yeah.
walking the walk.
I know when did the left, one thing that intrigues me about the left right now is they were always the one that, hey, don't listen to the man, don't just fight against. Now they've become the man and they're mandating behavior. It's such an opposite position for where I used to think the left to be. It's like whiplash. I'm confused about it. I thought I was liberal.
Yeah, it's like, well, here's a way to confuse him. Like, oh, I love Trump, but I'm mad at my own genitals. Like, what are you gonna do with me? Where are you gonna
and
put
so
me?
and so the wet spot was your own idea that came out of that.
Yeah, and like honestly, legitimately very inspired by you throughout the years. And I was in my time coming onto Compound Media, I'd be like, okay, they got politics covered, current events covered. Definitely there's a lot of comedy. I was finding my comedy aligns with these guys more than it does, I don't know, whatever the hell the other
Is
side is
is, is
doing.
Bill is Bill Schultz
Bill
over there?
Schultz, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I
okay,
think that's how
okay,
like initially I got connected to you. Yeah, like a
okay. Maybe
year or
that's right.
so
Okay,
back.
got it.
And then I was like, oh, there's no like fluffy female-led shows on this network. So then I pitched like, yeah, let me do a sex dating relationship sort of panel advice show. We'd have like comedians and porn stars on, and then also like experts and like therapists come on, and people would send us questions, people would call in, and then we would do some like funny like in studio, like we did Twister a month or so
Oh, nice.
ago, which doesn't really
Well,
solve
I
anything.
gotta get in there when one of these days when you're in. There is that Irish bar across the
Yes.
because that's always where I meet Bill Schultz for a sausage and
Oh, yeah, that place
bangers
is
and beer
great.
or whatever.
Yeah. They're chill over there. They're starting to like, they'll see me walk in and they get the vodka soda ready. And I'm like, uh-oh.
I know. Well, don't worry,
Yeah.
Bill will be sitting at the bar already.
Yeah. Speaking of being attracted to alcoholics, no, he's great.
What?
Yeah. So it's like, what do we do? I think you just, I don't know. I just want people to not be afraid and like take a breath and
I'm
I
with
don't
you.
know.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I got trounced on for trying to do that though. I must admit my rhetoric was excessive at the time, but I was really pushing back, saying, just don't listen to the press. Don't listen. Calm down. Listen to Fauci. Don't listen to the press. And I
Hmm.
was crucified for that. So, and legitimately, I missed the infectivity of this thing. It is profoundly infectious, and I've seen some terrible cases too. I lost some patients I dearly love, and it's a nasty illness.
But that's because it's been like, this is a virus that's been tweaked intentionally, like to fuck people up. So it's
Now
like,
you're getting a little paranoid on me.
no,
Now you're going all right
no.
on me. I don't know. Maybe one day we'll
Okay.
find out. Maybe one day
Okay.
that's true. The prevailing wisdom is that it occurred naturally. However, there are some fingerprints in the genome that look a little suspicious. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So nobody ate a bat.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No sex with armadillos or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
It is interesting because that's probably, I'm like, okay, if this was tweaked, I can imagine it's only then more complicated to create a vaccine for the tweaked virus. But
well, maybe, but you understand, with the vaccines are all directed at the spike protein, which are essentially something the virus needs to get into the body, and so it doesn't change. It's a certain lock and key fit with a receptor in our called the ACE2 receptor, and that key can't really change that much. So the vaccines can be very specific for that.
are you worried about like, would you do a vaccine? I know that's probably like
I
a really
can't.
personal.
I've signed up for 4 phase 3 trials. I didn't get picked for any of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The vaccine should be available in a couple weeks for doctors. I will get it. I don't care how the fastest I can get it is how I'm going to get it.
You're not worried about like weird side
I,
effects
I
or,
am sympathetic to people who are worried about it because this is a new technology. I study the technology. I know what they're doing. It's excellent biology. There's nothing to be afraid of. But as with anything in biological systems, there can be untoward things way down the line. This kind of vaccine, both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, are what are called RNA vaccines. They've never been used before in this country. They've been used in other countries for things like Ebola with no problems. But I'm sympathetic to people who say, I just want to wait for the live attenuated virus, the old-fashioned sort of vaccine, and I'll take that. Okay, particularly if you're in a low-risk category, you're 30 and you don't have diabetes or obesity or anything. It's like, all right, I get it. You can wait. I'm 62 and I have
you don't
metabolic
look
syndrome.
it.
God bless you. God bless you. See how that works? And so and I have metabolic syndrome. I'm a risk category. I'm a healthcare provider. I'm gonna get that thing right away.
Okay. Weren't a bunch of vaccines like in India and Africa like super problematic, caused a bunch of birth defects and sterilization, and that was kind of, they were linked to Gates, which is kind of linked to.
That was all rumor. There was actually no evidence that happened. That was all sort of these propaganda. There was, go watch the Bill Gates Netflix series. It goes into the detail about how they suddenly got paranoid that he was trying to do something to these little tribal populations, and then all this craziness developed. So
Okay, all right. So you're okay with Bill Gates?
yes, I'm okay with Bill Gates. I think he's doing some pretty good things for humanity, and it's weird how he gets sort of vilified for trying to be good. To me, it's always astonishing to me when people take aim at people that are trying to do good.
It might be because like, yeah, in times of like chaos and confusion, people are like looking for something to know for sure.
Well, that, and then their narcissistic rage is coming out, right? And they got to focus it somewhere. And there's all the other people that are public people are good targets. Tell me, I'm curious more about the wet spot. What do you have any questions for me out of that, or things you've really learned that surprised you?
I love when people call in with questions. At this point, like I have like a regular couple of like super fans that are always calling in. And it's a lot of, I've noticed a lot, like just the questions that are mailed in are like usually guys really frustrated with like how to meet women. They don't want to meet to somebody. I mean, this is all like pre-lockdown, right? I mean, it's
Right.
Things are different
That
now,
that
but
that is a really, really, really common thing right now for millennial males. They're scared. They don't want to make a misstep. They really, really, really want to have a girlfriend or have sex or whatever, but they don't want to be called, mischaracterized or thought of badly. They're really scared.
yeah. Yeah, and like just trying to, I can't imagine how hard it is now. Like you're just on an app, but like nobody's really meeting face to face, and it's like, are we gonna do a
Yeah.
walking date? So that's been frustrating. And on like the porn star end of it, what I've really learned is just what it takes, like just the amount of upkeep that has to happen before shooting a scene. It's like I had no idea
Like what kind
to
of
the
what kind of stuff?
extent, like these girls, like they, and it's interesting, like it's maybe not necessarily something that people tell you when you just get in. You kind of like almost like they let you fail on it for a little bit, but just like what your normal, like without grossing too many people out, like what your normal like lady discharge is, you have to get up all in there, get that all out, like there can be no trace of anything
Huh.
in the scene, basically. Like it's not just taking a shower, but it's like douching to the max. Like you can't have any trace of any kind of fluids
Of
on
any
anywhere, because that's like gross to see. I guess that's gross for people to see.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do they not chafe themselves?
I don't know. I've learned like that. I've heard a lot of tips and tricks. Like some girls will use like boric acid or like put
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
up there. I don't know if that's like to fight off bugs or like
Oh my God.
like I don't know if it's like a preemptive strike. Like
Strike.
you might be
Yeah.
with somebody who might have something. Yeah,
Wild.
I don't know how it's got to be rough, but literally, physically, but yeah, I don't envy them. I just feel like it's a lot of upkeep. So yeah. They're fun
You
though.
thought it was fun. Well, you thought they were having a good time.
Like they're making money. I did become a little bit envious during the lockdown of these girls on OnlyFans that were able to like pay their
Uh,
rents just in a few days. I'm like,
that's pretty crazy.
I should
That
have a
is
six
super
pack.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's your future there.
Yeah.
That's your next creative flow.
Is
OnlyFans.
this
Yeah.
something you talk about much? Like if you had told me that you're gonna have 8 months,
Mm.
of like less work, more time, et cetera, I'd be like, oh man, I'm gonna get jacked. I'm gonna get a six pack. I'm gonna definitely, there's nothing keeping me from working out every day. I would be like, wow, I'm gonna look amazing in 8 months. But like here I am, like maybe I gained 8 pounds, So like how can you explain, like, well, people do have more time, and we've always, even before lockdown, like, oh, if only I had more time, if only I had more time.
Really, the reality is about humans is we're lazy, and doing people that do more do more. It's an uncanny phenomenon that a lot of people that do a lot report, which is that the more they do, the more they seem to be able to do, which is a really weird thing. And as a workaholic, I get very high on that. I get very into it. I get very sort of turned on by it. And so I'm very aware of it. And yeah, if I'm like, we traveled a while ago, went to Mexico. We had a great, amazing time, but I brought books and all these things I was going to do. I didn't do a goddamn thing. I didn't
Yeah.
do anything. I barely worked out, barely. And that was astonishing that I did. And that's just how we are. As we sort of shut down, we go all the way to seated position and don't tend to get up.
Yeah, like I could have had a pilot's license, like I could have
I know.
gone
Well,
to
that's how I
online
knew.
school.
It's also how I knew I was depressed during this whole thing.
Hmm.
Normally, when I have free time, I read, and I had all these. I didn't even want to read. I was nothing I was interested in reading, and I still read my medical literature and stuff, but I didn't anything outside of that, which was like bewildering to me. And then I started becoming aware that I was depressed, and then all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, I started reading again. I thought, oh, I'm kind of okay now. I can tell. And when I tune in, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not nearly as depressed. And the reason I'm not depressed is we started traveling and doing things and doing social things. And I wouldn't say our life is normal, but it had a feature of normalcy. Those qualities that were normal, and there was more social interaction. It made a huge difference. Huge, huge.
How does somebody know they're depressed if they've never, if someone's listening and
It's
they're
hard.
like, yeah.
It's hard. Depression, and it manifests differently in different age groups, right? If you're an adolescent and you're depressed, substance use, drop in grades, number one, change in attire, sexual acting out, pregnancy. I mean, all these are all signs of depression. The change in peer group, it's sort of the reckless behavior of adolescents. That's how they manifest depression. Sleep changes. They don't tend to express sadness. In adulthood, sadness and crying can be a feature of it, but it isn't necessarily a part of it. It can be panic and anxiety. It can have an agitated depression. It could be, fundamentally it's sort of lack of enjoyment or lack of meaning in things that were always enjoyable or meaningful. And it may be feelings of dread and worthlessness, again, sleep disturbances, change in appetite patterns, suicidal ideation. And it's different in different people. It's different. It's a biological state we get into, and what we call an affect state. And in that state, we manifest differently. And it may feel like a grief feeling. It may feel like sadness. I think we all kind of intuitively know that as depression, but it may not include that at all in some situations. My depressions, of my more chronic depressions, I'm always unaware that I'm in them till something kind of, like I was just telling you, like the reading thing sort of alerts me that, oh yeah, you're depressed again.
Yeah. I have, like, my therapist was like, yeah, that I'll deal with that too from time to time. And like before I met my boyfriend, I had like a month-long summer where it just was like literally hooking up with somebody new every day. And I'm like, oh, that's just me probably trying to avoid stuff.
Right. That's right. It's a way of trying to, and we reach for, particularly when we're younger, we reach for solutions that society says are solutions: substances, sex, loud music, acting out in various ways. That's going to make you feel better, right? Doesn't really work.
Because it drops and then you need something else. Yeah.
Well, there's that, or you trigger another problem or a series of other problems. You get a shitty relationship, you get an STD, you get an addiction. I mean, stuff happens.
Or a baby you didn't want.
Or a baby you didn't want. That can happen.
All right. This is great. Dr. Drew, where do you most want to point people who want to follow you?
Want people, we've been working really hard. The one thing, again, when I was looking for meaning myself during this COVID thing, my wife proposed us doing a streaming show every day, which we do. It's called Dose of Dr. Drew. Stream for an hour, usually around 3 p.m. Pacific. One day a week we do it with call-ins. We call it Ask Then. And you can find it at Facebook/Dr. Drew or YouTube/Dr. Drew or drdrew.tv. Those are the things we're kind of working on now. Me and Adam still do a podcast. You can find that. I do a podcast by myself, and I do a podcast that's similar to sort of Loveline and Wet Spot called After Dark with Christina P.,
yeah.
Tom Segura's wife. And we take emails and phone calls and things and answer all those lovely questions. And in my job, there's a whole medical component to sex and sexuality, and those tend to be the questions that people have the most confusion about. So we do a lot of that stuff.
Are people sending you pictures like, what's this?
Sort of emails and voice messages and things like that. And it's all the, am I going to hurt myself if I crack my penis? And blah, 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 people are very imaginative in their preoccupations, particularly men, about their genitalia.
That it's going to snap into. Yeah. Nobody wants that.
Well, there's fracturing it, but then you can actually crack it like a knuckle.
Wow.
So you look it up online.
Imagine like before you have sex, you just like
look it up online. You can see it. It'll make your skin crawl, and that's harmless. But fracturing your penis, that needs a surgery.
Oh man! All right.
It's a good thing.
I'll tell my boyfriend. I'll have to go easy on him.
Crack his penis.
Yeah. Drew, this was great. This was so great.
I'm so glad. I'm so sorry it took so long. I feel guilty, and I'm flashing back now on Bill talking about how great you are, and he's absolutely correct. And so it's a privilege to talk to you for a while.
Oh, thank you
and
so
hopefully
much.
I can come into the studio one of these days, because
Yes.
I actually live right down the street in the 30s, towards west of there.
Oh, that's great. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, we will keep in touch.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Bye.